Good evening and welcome to the 2021 production of the Marietta Times Scary Stories Writing Contest on WMOA Marietta Local Radio. Tonight, we welcome in 6 talented area writers for thrills and frights. Our winners this year are a 3rd grader from Belpre Elementary, Kayla Robinson. Simon Paff is a 4th grader at Madison Elementary. From Waterford Elementary, a 5th grader, Luke McCutcheon. A 6th grader from Marietta Elementary, Emeri Rieder. From Waterford Elementary, Thomas Daugherty, a 7th grader. And finally, from Marietta High School, 8th grader, Justin Zheng. We will hear the winning stories read by the authors themselves tonight, and we will also continue another Halloween tradition on local radio as we bring you the 1938 radio drama The War of the Worlds, a radio drama produced by the Mercury Theater on the Air, starring Orson Welles as an adaptation of the H.G. Wells novel written in 1898. All that is to come, and it's all brought to you tonight on the radio by our community-minded sponsors.
The team of professionals at First Quality Collision Center knows that getting your vehicle repaired quickly is second only to getting the job done right the first time. Sam and Amber Heiss are proud to own and operate the finest independent collision repair center in the area. First Quality Collision Center, offering timely repairs, insurance estimates, and the promise to get your car back on the road as quickly as possible. Call 740-373-9303 for free estimates and insurance claims. First Quality Collision Center, 121 South 4th Street, Marietta.
As sure as the wind blows colder and the night grows darker, October brings a special time of year about. The crunch of leaves below the feet, the harvest moon above, and the sound of a marching band on Friday night. The family of Dr. Bill Klein is proud to sponsor the traditional rebroadcast of the classic radio tale War of the Worlds on WMOA. Also, Bill, Sue, Jessica, and Caitlin Klein take this time to congratulate the ghostwriters who get to share their stories on the radio.
Artex Oil Company takes great pride in working with landowners to provide America affordable energy, produced locally. Although Artex can trace its roots back over 50 years, it has accelerated its growth in the last 2 decades, moving to one of the top natural gas and oil producers based in the state of Ohio. Tonight, Artex Oil Company is proud to honor our young storytellers on the radio and also pay tribute to one of the great storytellers of yesteryear, Orson Welles. Artex Oil, your neighbors working locally to provide energy for America.
Welcome back to Scary Stories on WMOA AM 1490 and FM 101.3, streaming online at WMOA1490.com and on our app too. It's time for our first scary story. The story of the missing Halloween candy by Kayla Robinson.
Once upon a time, there was a fat dog named Cooper who protected Animalville. The town was shared with humans. It was Halloween night. Cooper was watching the streets and noticed a little girl did not have candy. Then he saw all of the kids did not have candy, so Cooper walked up and asked why she did not have candy. She said she had candy, but now there's a hole in the bottom of her bucket and it's gone. Cooper went around the neighborhood. Then when he got to the end of the street, he heard a noise. It sounded like a whistling noise. He looked around. When he saw a hole, he smelled candy. Cooper looked in the hole. He dug and found candy. He gave all the candy to the children. Cooper went to his office to think about who did it. He knows that an animal who can dig did it, so he went to check the animals' houses to see if there was any candy. At the last house, he saw candy. It was the same hole where he found the candy earlier. This probably meant Murphy the groundhog did it. He was home, so Cooper talked to him to see why he did it. Murphy said he wanted to go trick-or-treating, but he did not have a costume. The children felt sad for him, so they found a costume. Murphy was able to go trick-or-treating now. He went as a dragon. Cooper had saved Halloween not only for the children, but also for Murphy. That's the story of the missing Halloween candy.
Next up is Simon Paff with Trick or Scare.
Jackson, Braden, David, and Gabe were at the last house in their neighborhood. They hit the half jackpot. They got some good candy and some bad candy. They threw out all the bad candy at the end of the night. The boys rang the doorbell of the last house, but no one answered. Suddenly, the last street light went out, and the boys were by themselves in the pitch black. Then Jackson said maybe we should go, but Braden said we should hide, so they compromised. The boys decided to go to Jackson's house and hide, but they heard a The boys jumped and looked back. All the bad candy the boys threw out turned into a giant candy monster. Braden tugged on Jackson's arm and said, "Let's run," and Jackson said, "Agreed." The 4 boys ran and hid in Gabe's backyard, and Gabe lifted a trapdoor, and the boys thought they were safe. But then the monster came out of the trapdoor. Gabe dropped the lid of the trapdoor on the monster's head. Splat! Candy went everywhere. The boys hugged each other, but then the candy started to come together. The boys ran, but David grabbed a piece of Laffy Taffy and ate it. Then David yelled, "I know how to defeat the monster." The boys huddled together. "There's only one way to do this. Eat him," the boys yelled. They charged at the monster, and the monster charged too. Jackson dived right through the monster. The monster groaned, but then Braden and Gabe ate his legs. The monster had died, but one piece of candy remained. The monster might return, no one knows. The monster might be your candy.
You are listening to Scary Stories on WMOA AM 1490 and FM 101.3, and now it's The Shortcut by Luke McCutcheon.
In 1980 at Clearwater Falls at around 11:30, 17-year-old Ricky and his girlfriend Elena were on a date at the movie theater. When the movie was over, Ricky wanted to take a shortcut to get home. The shortcut was thick and overgrown. They were about to take a turn, then they saw an old barn. When it was Friday, October 13th, and Ricky thought it would be cool to go into the barn and see if it was haunted. It was midnight now. Suddenly, they saw somebody standing at the edge of the woods, and it looked like they were holding something. As the eerie figures started walking towards them, they thought it looked like an old lumberjack, and he was missing a hand. He was carrying an axe, and he was chasing them. They ran into the barn and climbed into the hayloft above them. Just when they thought they lost him, he appeared right in front of them. Elena got scared and ran, but Ricky almost fell out the window. Then Elena ran towards the creepy lumberjack, stabbed him with a pitchfork, and shoved it farther, piercing all the way through him. Then she threw him out the window, and he was impaled by a hay baler. They could see that the lumberjack was dead. They swore never to take a shortcut again. Ricky and Elena hugged each other really hard and went home. After looking at Ricky's family tree for the first time, he noticed someone that looked like the crazy lumberjack guy. He researched him and found out that the guy's name is Bill, and he lost his hand when a tree limb fell on his arm and his friend had to cut it off. Apparently, he wanted revenge but died in 1880. That night haunted Ricky's dreams for the rest of his life.
We are halfway home tonight. The whole staff of WMOA wishes everyone a happy Halloween and send out a special thank you to our talented writers for sharing their stories with us. And we also thank the Marietta Times for holding the contest and letting us take part and put together this production. It's now time for Janitor's Shift by Emeri, Rieder.
The janitor entered the old school building for his night shift. The moon shined through the window which lit up the dark school hallway. He was the only one in the building. It was a somewhat normal night. The only strange thing was that he felt like he was being watched, like a mouse being stalked by a cat. Almost the moment he started to sweep the tiled floor of a dark classroom, he heard a crash coming from the cafeteria, which was 2 rooms down the hallway. The tired janitor grumbled to himself, thinking a raccoon or something got in. He entered the cafeteria, looking around for the striped, bushy tail of a raccoon or a sign of any type of animal. His vision landed on a tall, almost too tall figure standing in front of a vending machine, the lights on the machine flickering. It startled him, but despite his fright, he opened his mouth to speak. "Hey, you're not allowed to be in here." His normally deep voice was shaky and higher pitched, despite the fact that he was trying his best to control it. When the figure didn't respond, he began to slowly walk forward. When he was close enough to see it better, he froze, horror consuming him. That thing wasn't a human. Its skin looked as if it were too small for the bones in its body. And the smell, oh, the smell was horrid. It was like something from a horror movie, but worse, because it wasn't fake, it was happening. A blood-curdling scream escaped his mouth, a scream which would have frightened any small child, a scream, the janitor realized, that alerted the creature. The hideous creature bent back in a way that wasn't humanly possible. Its back was arching, but its legs stayed straight, so it looked as though it were folded over. It stared at him with glowing white eyes, almost cat-like, and a grin that went ear to ear. And then it screeched, an ear-splitting screech that made the janitor's ears ring. Everything slowed down. The creature started running, its feet banging on the ground. There was no time to react as its bony fingers grasped the janitor. Its slimy mouth opened, revealing another mouth inside, the sharp teeth stained. The inner mouth spewed out a dark, murky liquid into his eyes, blinding him. And then there was just darkness. He didn't feel like himself anymore. He felt hunger.
Thomas Daugherty brings us our next story entitled The Pumpkin Man.
One night, a boy was picking up trash in a cornfield, and he heard a noise in the cornfield. He didn't know what it was, so he followed the noise. Charlie stopped, and he looked back. He followed the noise. Charlie went back to the corn to run for his life, and stopped to see a tall scarecrow with blood all over him. The scarecrow's eyes were red and angry. Charlie saw the scarecrow holding a sickle. Charlie was taken by the scarecrow. The next morning, the farmer was shocked to see that Charlie was hanging on the post and he's still alive. The farmer took him to the doctor, and he said Charlie will have to sleep for 2 days and nights. The scarecrow was coming to the farmer's house. The farmer went to the cornfield with his gun. The farmer and the scarecrow were coming, and the farmer shot and dead.
We've come to our final scary story tonight. This is Wrong House by Justin Zheng.
I live with my family in Hubbard, Ohio. It's a small town to live in, and not much happens there. One night, I was home alone watching TV all by my lonesome. I found company in The Good People's Surprise, a Chinese web comedy series. In my opinion, there's nothing better than some lighthearted comedy to end the day with. I had turned up the volume relatively loud and was in that state of mind where I wasn't really thinking of anything in particular. I was just zoning out in my comfy chair. Halfway through the second video, a shadow appeared on the screen. Soon, it dawned on me what it was. From the light in the hallway behind me, I could make out a silhouette of a person reflected on the TV. I wasn't expecting company that night. I swung around to see a man I had never seen before. He must have been 6'4", wearing all black and holding a sharp blade. I hadn't heard anyone come in, nor any footsteps. He had been creeping up on me, his movements masked by the sound of laughter. We just stared at each other for a good 10 seconds, neither of us moving or even blinking. Just 10 seconds of solid, expressionless eye contact. "Wrong house," he said, before turning and walking out into the hallway. I watched as he slipped on the shoes he had taken off and casually strolled out the front door. I jumped to bolt the front door, only to find that the lock had been tampered with. I wasn't going crazy. I had the front door locked for the entire day. The first thing I did was to order a new and more sturdy lock. It's crazy to think how in one moment you can be relaxing without care in the world, and in the next, everything can be taken away from you without warning. Something I still wonder about that night is, what did he mean by wrong house? What was he planning on doing that night?
That concludes the 2021 Scary Stories. One final thank you to our authors and their families for taking the time to share their stories with us here at WMOA Radio, and all of you out in Radio Land. We'll hear another word from our sponsors this evening and then take you to the Mercury Theater of 83 years ago for War of the Worlds.
Artex Oil Company takes great pride in working with landowners to provide America affordable energy produced locally. Although Artex can trace its roots back over 50 years, it has accelerated its growth in the last 2 decades, moving to one of the top natural gas and oil producers based in the state of Ohio. Tonight, Artex Oil Company is proud to honor our young storytellers on the radio and also pay tribute to one of the great storytellers of yesteryear, Orson Welles. Artex Oil, your neighbors working locally to provide energy for America.
As sure as the wind blows colder and the night grows darker, October brings a special time of year about. The crunch of leaves below the feet, the harvest moon above, and the sound of a marching band on Friday night. The family of Dr. Bill Klein is proud to sponsor the traditional rebroadcast of the classic radio tale War of the Worlds on WMOA. Also, Bill, Sue, Jessica, and Caitlin Klein take this time to congratulate the ghostwriters who get to share their stories on the radio.
At First Quality Collision Center, owners Amber and Sam Heiss love the steady business, but not at the expense of injuries that come with accidents. First Quality Collision Center knows that accidents happen. From angry drivers to distracted drivers, accidents occur. That's why First Quality Collision Center is in business. Do your part, put your cell phone down, and be at the ready. At First Quality, we'll see you when we see you, but we're in no hurry, and you shouldn't be either. Call 740-373-9303.